In today's tutorial, we see how to make this kitten with our Necchi Creator C2000 embroidery and sewing version. Let's see how to do it. First of all, we put the stabilizer in the hoop and squeeze it tightly until you can drum it with your fingers. Then we put the hoop in the machine and we go and get from the cloud the file that we sent ourselves with the app or the computer program, and then we go and send the embroidery to the machine. Then we take a rectangle of linen and we go and place it on top of the stabilizer. I always let the thread go up from underneath when I have to start a new embroidery to avoid any tangling, and then I cut the thread after I have done a few stitches. Then I push the start button so that the machine can go all the way around the outline of our kitten. This outline is needed to secure our piece of linen to the hoop and to the stabilizer, but also to have a trace for when we have to sew the puppet with the sewing machine. The machine keeps stitching as long as it has designs done in one color, and in this case we are doing with the black thread the eyes, the whiskers, the mouth, and then the lettering that will be precisely on the belly of our puppet, which in this case is a lettering that says "Be My Valentine." To break it up a little bit, I did the "Be Valentine" in black color, while the "My" is in another color. In fact, now it's time to change the color. With this color I make the "My" lettering and the nose of the puppet. And then there will also be a little heart next to the lettering. While doing the embroidery in the same color, the machine continues without stopping. Instead, when there is a color change, the machine stops, as in this case, where I have to insert the pink to make the ears. To make very good embroideries, I recommend that you always use very good polyester thread, which also gives you this beautiful satin effect that is very shiny. After we have done all the part of the embroidery, I remove the hoop from the machine, and then we can go and remove the stabilizer so we can unhoop the work. After that, we tear off the stabilizer a little bit everywhere. On the other end, as for the face, since there are a lot of parts embroidered only with simple stitches, I prefer to leave some stabilizer on the back to secure the embroidery. Now we deal with going to make a new file, which I always imported to the cloud from my app or my computer, the legs and arms of the puppet. This part can also be done with the sewing machine if you make the patterns. Then you can sew the legs and arms directly with fabric. However, I wanted to show you in this case that you can also do it this way, creating a trace, especially if legs and arms are made with different colors. The track on the stabilizers show you where to place the two pieces of fabric right side together, because they have to be sewn together. In this case, I decided to make the legs with fuchsia fabric and the arms with pink fabric, and since I needed to know where the seams would come, I created a trace on the base first and then I sewed the fabric together. Now I'm putting the cloths together to make the arms. The excess of the fabric from the legs, as you can see, I secured it with pins so that the embroidery of the arms would not go on the fabric of the legs. Now it's time to remove the stabilizer from the legs and arms as well, and then we are going to cut all around it. The seam you see is the leftover seam remained from the track. When we have cut all around our shapes, we will end up with 2 legs and 2 arms that of course needed to be turned over. Now we stuff them very well and then secure them to the front of our puppet. We now secure everything with pins, looking carefully at how they turn over once they are sewn on. And we push the stuffing in very well, so that way we can sew on a part that is flat and doesn't bother us. The next steps are done with the sewing machine, so I take apart the embroidery arm to convert the embroidery machine to a sewing machine, and I take out from the accessory holder my presser foot and a screwdriver. Then I take apart the embroidery foot and put on the sewing foot. I don't change the plate because I will only be doing straight stitches, so I can keep the embroidery plate as well. When I finish these operations, I put everything in the accessory holder that is both in the front and in the back of the machine, and it is really very convenient to keep everything in order. Even though there is the start and stop button, you can clearly use the foot controller. And then we go from the main menu to choose the stitching, and in this case I'm going to choose straight stitching because I only need to make straight seams. I start by sewing the arms to the body, trying to follow what is the reference line that we made at the beginning, which, as I told you, was made just to draw the outline of the puppet. So I do my reverse stitches at the beginning, then after that I sew the arm this way, and then after that I do some reverse stitches again to secure the arm. Once I am done, I can use my thread trimmer to cut the thread and to raise the presser foot automatically. I sew one arm and then I do the exact same thing for the other arm. To sew the legs, we do the same way. We then push the stuffing always inward to have a flat part to sew on. Then we secure with pins and check precisely that once sewn, the legs are in the correct position. And then again back and forth at the beginning and end of each piece of fabric, so we can secure the legs to the front of the kitten. And here it is. It looks amazing, isn't it? Now we have to sew the back. So this is a little bit more complicated part because we have a little bit of thickness of the arms and the legs. So first I secure the fabric right side together with pins, and then I also use some basting thread to make a seam all around the outline, so that when I will sew it I can have more ease in this operation. One important thing is that the two base fabric, by pulling them, are the same length. This is very important. I will use the needle down function so that every time I stop, the needle stays in the fabric and allows me to turn and sew better. I can set this function from the machine panel, and then at the end, of course, I do my usual back and forth and cut the thread with the thread trimmer, which also lifts my needle and presser foot all at once. Now I'm cutting about half an inch from the seam, and I make little cuts near the neck so that the seam will look good when I flip the puppet. To flip it, we have to push all the corners and all the seams out well, so that we have everything nice and flat, both front and back. This operation is very important. Then we start stuffing. First, we use very little stuffing to fill the head, and then the farther we go down toward the belly, the more we can just abound. The puppets look good if they are heavily stuffed. Never leave the puppets a little deflated. We stop the stuffing a little bit upward with some pins, always to have a flat part. Then, following the line that we have as a reference, we are going to create these folds so that we can close the bottom. The black stitches, though, since I couldn't hide them, I decided to simply remove them with a buttonhole cutter, also because they were just a reference guide. Then I secured everything with pins, and once secured, of course, I then go to the sewing machine, and in this case I use the dual feed system. A very nice thing about this machine is that I have the dual feed system built in, And when I have to sew parts that are a little bit difficult, like in this case where I'm dealing with some stuffing in between, some ends and edges and different layer of fabric, the dual fit system really gives a big hand to go straight and sew everything very well. Now our kitten is ready.